Police handcuffed a school bus driver after a terrified student accused him of sabotage. Hours later, the replacement bus carrying 19 children vanished into the mountains. At 6:12 every weekday morning, Daniel Mercer turned the key in bus 18 and listened to the old diesel engine argue with the cold. It always started eventually. The bus was a 20-year-old blue bird with faded yellow paint, cracked vinyl seats, and a heater that followed its own private calendar. The Bellwether County School District kept promising to replace it. Daniel kept a toolbox behind the driver's seat because promises did not tighten alternator belts or repair loose door latches. To most people in Bellwether, Virginia, Daniel was simply Mr. Mercer, the quiet school bus driver with an old canvas jacket and a permanent limp. He was 56, broad through the shoulders, and gray at the temples. He rented a small house near the Shenandoah River, drove a 12-year-old Ford pickup, and spent his weekends repairing fishing reels for neighbors who usually tried to pay him in venison or pie. No one in town knew much about his past. When children asked about his limp, Daniel said he had hurt his knee overseas. When adults asked what he had done in the Navy, he said, "Mostly maintenance." It was not exactly a lie. He had maintained weapons, radios, operational security, and the lives of the men under his command. For 22 years, Senior Chief Daniel Mercer. If you enjoy stories of courage, justice, and redemption, subscribe to The Wrong Man, Axar, then drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to welcome you. Mercer had served in naval special warfare. His record included 7 combat deployments, 2 classified hostage recoveries, and a winter night in Afghanistan when he carried a wounded teammate 11 miles down a mountain while men with rifles and radios hunted them through the snow. He had received medals he kept in a sealed box beneath old tax returns. Then his wife, Anna, died from an aneurysm 6 months after his retirement. The silence in their house became unbearable. Daniel tried construction. He tried private security. He lasted 3 days with a defense contractor whose executives discussed war as if it were a quarterly sales strategy. Then Bellwether County Public Schools advertised for bus drivers. The pay was modest. The hours were early. The responsibility was absolute. Daniel applied. 3 years later, Bus 18 had become the center of his life. He knew which children needed an extra second to climb the steps. He knew who got carsick, who forgot lunch money, and who pretended not to be hungry. He knew 11-year-old Marcus Green sat near the front because loud noises frightened him. He knew 8-year-old Lily Chen counted telephone poles when she felt anxious. He also knew 14-year-old Emma Vale wore expensive headphones without playing music so no one would notice when she cried. Her father, Grant Vale, was one of Bellwether's richest men. Vale owned Sentinel Response Group, a fast-growing security company with state contracts, armored vehicles, and a polished headquarters outside Washington, D.C. He served on the school foundation board, donated uniforms to the football team, and arrived at parent meetings in a black Range Rover that never seemed to collect dust. He also hated Bus 18. "This thing belongs in a junkyard," Vale said one November morning. He stood at the curb outside his stone estate, one hand wrapped around a stainless steel travel mug. His tailored overcoat probably cost more than Daniel earned in a month. Emma had already boarded. She sat behind Daniel, staring at the floor. Daniel looked down through the folding door. "Good morning, Master Vale." "Don't good morning me. The heater failed again yesterday. It was repaired last night." "That's not the point. What is the point?" Vale gestured at the bus as if presenting evidence at trial. "The point is that I pay almost $40,000 a year in property taxes, and my daughter gets transported in this rolling liability." Behind him, Emma's 10-year-old brother, Noah, climbed into the Range Rover with a private school backpack. The boy glanced toward Emma before Vale shut the rear door. Daniel kept his voice even. Bus 18 passed its state inspection in August and its district inspection on Monday. "I don't care what some county mechanic signed. Look at it. I look at it every morning," Vale stepped closer. You think you're clever? No, sir. That answer unsettled him more than an argument would have. Several children were watching now. Emma pulled her hood over her head. Vale lowered his voice. I've spoken to Superintendent Pike. This route is going to a private transportation company in January. New buses, professional drivers, people who understand standards. Daniel glanced at Emma in the mirror. Her face had gone red. Then January should solve your problem, he said. Vale's jaw tightened. Until then, keep my daughter safe. That's the job. You don't inspire confidence. Daniel closed the door. As he pulled away, he saw Emma sinking lower in her seat. At the next stop, she moved to the front. I'm sorry about him, she whispered. You don't owe apologies for other people. He talks to everyone like that. Daniel watched the road. Then he owes a lot of apologies. Emma almost smiled. Almost. The replacement contract became the biggest argument in Bellwether before Christmas. Sentinel Response Group had created a transportation division 6 months earlier. The company promised new buses equipped with facial recognition cameras, real-time tracking, and armed security officers on selected routes. Grant Vale called it the future of student safety. The contract would cost the county nearly twice what it spent operating its own fleet. It would also eliminate 73 local jobs. At a packed school board meeting, drivers, mechanics, and parents lined up to object. Daniel sat in the back beside Marlene Ruiz, the district transportation supervisor. Marlene had driven buses for 19 years before taking the desk job. She was short, direct, and unimpressed by expensive suits. You going to speak? She asked. No. You've inspected more vehicles than half the people in this room. Not my meeting. That's cowardly. Probably. Marlene studied him. Every time I think I understand you, you say something strange. At the front of the room, Grant Vale displayed glossy photographs of Sentinel's new fleet. The buses had tinted windows and sculpted body panels. They looked more like airport shuttles than school vehicles. Our children face evolving threats, Vale said. We cannot protect them with yesterday's equipment and minimum wage employees. A murmur went through the drivers. Daniel saw Marlene stiffen. Vale continued. Sentinel will bring military-grade discipline to student transportation. On the screen behind him appeared a photograph of uniformed security officers standing beside a bus. Their gear was immaculate. Their rifles were accessorized for a catalog. One man wore his tourniquet where he could not reach it with either hand. Daniel leaned toward Marlene. Who trains them? Sentinel does. That's what worries me. You finally have something to say? Not yet. Then Vale made the mistake that changed the room. Right now, he said, parents are trusting their children to retirees, part-time workers, and people who could not qualify for more demanding employment. The drivers erupted. Board members called for order. Marlene rose halfway out of her chair, but Daniel put a hand on her arm. Sit down. Did you hear him? Yes. And you're letting that stand? Daniel's gaze remained fixed on Vale. A man who needs strangers to feel small in public usually feels small in private. Marlene slowly sat. The board approved a 90-day pilot program by a vote of 4-3. Bus 18 would be one of the first routes transferred to Sentinel in January. 2 days later, Daniel found an envelope taped inside his locker. Retire before the district does it for you. There was no signature. He folded the note, placed it in his pocket, and began his afternoon route. The children were louder than usual. Christmas break was 3 days away, and a light dusting of snow had started falling over Bellwether. At Cedar Ridge Middle School, Emma Vale boarded last. She had a bruise around her wrist. Daniel noticed because noticing was a habit he had never been able to retire. You okay? He asked. She pulled down her sleeve. Fine! Did someone grab you? No. Daniel waited. Emma looked toward the other students, then leaned closer. I went into my dad's office last night. He was yelling at somebody on the phone. That's not a reason for a bruise. He caught me recording him. Daniel's eyes moved to the mirrors. no one appeared to be listening. "What were you recording?" He said the pilot program had to start even if they had to create an emergency. Daniel felt something cold settle behind his ribs. "Exact words?" She nodded. Then he told someone named Rusk that frightened parents don't ask about price. "Where's the recording? He made me delete it." "Was it backed up?" "I don't know." Daniel had taught his own daughter, Claire, to configure automatic cloud backups when she was 12. Claire was 30 now, an emergency physician in Seattle, and far enough away that their weekly calls had become careful exercises in avoiding grief. "Do you still have the phone?" he asked. Emma touched her backpack. "Don't access it. Don't change anything. When we reach your stop, stay on the bus." Her face tightened. "You believe me?" "I believe you heard something that scared you. What are you going to do?" "First, I'm going to make sure you get home safely." Grant Vale was waiting at the curb. So was Superintendent Leonard Pike. Pike wore a district parka over a shirt and tie. He had the pale, exhausted expression of a man who had spent years compromising in small ways, and had recently discovered those compromises added up to a life. Daniel opened the door but did not let Emma pass. "Is there a problem?" Vale asked. "I need a word with you. You can speak while my daughter gets off. She has a bruise on her wrist." Vale smiled without warmth. "She fell at volleyball practice." "I don't play volleyball," Emma said. The smile disappeared. Pike stepped onto the first stair. Mercer, release the student." "She isn't being detained." "Then move." Daniel looked at Emma. "Do you feel safe getting off here?" Vale's face turned crimson. "How dare you?" Emma stared at her father. For one long second, Daniel thought she might tell the truth. Then she saw Pike beside him. She saw two men with money, authority, and every reason to protect each other. "I'm fine," she whispered. Daniel let her pass. Vale gripped her upper arm as soon as she reached the sidewalk. Daniel's voice changed. "Take your hand off her." It was not loud, but every child on bus 18 became silent. Vale released her. Pike climbed another step. "You're suspended effective immediately." "On what grounds?" "Improper interference in a parent-child matter, insubordination, creating an unsafe situation." Daniel reached for his phone. "Put that in writing." "It already is." The superintendent handed him a letter. It had been drafted before the bus arrived. Daniel understood then. This was not anger. It was containment. Someone knew Emma had spoken to him. Marlene arrived in a district sedan 20 minutes later to drive bus 18 back to the depot. Daniel stood in the snow while parents collected their children. Emma watched from an upstairs window. Grant Vale's silhouette appeared behind her and pulled the curtain closed. By the following morning, the story had spread across local social media. School bus driver refuses to release child to parent. One post claimed Daniel had threatened Grant Vale. Another said he had been emotionally unstable since his wife's death. A third described him as a washed-up veteran with anger issues. Grant appeared on a regional news broadcast that evening. "Emma is shaken," he told the reporter. "As a father, I'm deeply concerned that the district failed to identify this employee's instability sooner. This is precisely why transportation must be entrusted to trained security professionals." Daniel watched from his kitchen. His phone rang. The caller had read Claire. He considered letting it go to voicemail, then answered. "Hey, kiddo, don't kiddo me. What happened?" "You saw the news. I saw a rich man perform concern in a cashmere coat. What happened?" Daniel told her most of it. He did not mention the bruise. Emma was a minor, and Claire lived 3,000 miles away. Telling her would only transfer fear without giving her the power to act. Claire was quiet when he finished. "Dad, you always do this." "Do what?" "Stand still while people misunderstand you. Understanding me isn't required. It is when they're destroying your life. It's a bus-driving job." "No, it's your life. You love those kids." Daniel looked through the kitchen doorway at Anna's old piano. Dust had gathered along the closed lid. "I'll find other work." "That isn't the point." "What is?" "You came home from 22 years of war and decided disappearing was the same thing as healing. The words landed harder than she intended. Claire exhaled. "I'm sorry. Don't be. I just wish you'd stop treating survival like it's all you're allowed to have." After they hung up, Daniel sat alone until midnight. Then he took Emma's warning seriously. He searched Sentinel Response Group's public contracts, corporate registrations, and state licensing records. The company looked clean until he examined its subsidiaries. Sentinel Transportation had purchased its buses through Apex Municipal Leasing, a Delaware company whose listed director was Leonard Pike's brother-in-law. Daniel documented the connection. He also found that Sentinel's director of special operations was a man named Victor Rusk. Rusk had served 4 years in the Army, then worked as a private contractor in Iraq. He had been fired by 2 companies for negligence. In one incident, an Iraqi interpreter had been killed at a checkpoint after Rusk ignored established identification procedures. The report was public, buried in federal court exhibits. Frightened parents don't ask about price. Daniel forwarded everything to Marlene. She called 30 seconds later. "Where did you get this?" "Public records. People don't find things like this in one night. They do if they know where to look. What exactly did you do in the Navy?" "Maintenance." "Daniel, send it to the State Inspector General and the Sheriff, not Superintendent Pike." "You think Pike is involved?" "I think his family profits from the contract." Marlene swore softly. Then she said, "There's something else. Your suspension paperwork was entered into the system Tuesday morning." Daniel checked the time. "Pike had suspended him Tuesday afternoon." "They prepared it before Emma spoke to me," he said. "Looks that way. That meant the plan was broader than silencing a witness. They had wanted Daniel off Route 18 in advance." "Who's driving my route tomorrow?" Sentinel offered a temporary driver. Pike approved it. "What's his name?" "Caleb Morris." Daniel searched the name. No commercial driver's license appeared in Virginia's public certification database. "Cancel the route," he said. "I don't have authority. Pike locked me out of scheduling 10 minutes ago." "Call the sheriff." "With what? A leasing conflict and a missing database entry?" "They won't move before morning." Daniel was already pulling on his jacket. "Then we move." The district depot sat behind a chain-link fence on the edge of town. By the time Daniel arrived, snow covered the lot. The lights in the administrative building were off, but the maintenance bay was open. Bus 18 was inside. Marlene stood near the front bumper with Gus Everett, the district's senior mechanic. Gus held a flashlight beneath the bus. "Brake line was scored," he said. "Not cut through, just weakened enough to fail under pressure." Daniel crouched beside him. The damage was deliberate and subtle. It would survive a routine pre-trip inspection. After enough braking on mountain roads, the line would rupture. "Who brought it in?" Daniel asked. "Sentinel technician," Gus said. "Claimed he was installing their tracking equipment for the pilot." Marlene looked sick. "With children aboard?" "Maybe the driver was supposed to stop it before anyone got hurt," Daniel said. "A staged rescue." Armed security saves a disabled bus. Terrified parents demand immediate privatization. "And if the brakes failed too early?" Daniel looked at the scored line. "Then they would call it an accident. A vehicle moved outside the bay." Headlights swept across the wall. Daniel shut off Gus's flashlight and pulled both of them behind a tool cabinet. A man entered wearing a Sentinel jacket. Victor Rusk was heavier than his online photograph. He carried a red plastic fuel can in one hand and a pistol in the other. Marlene inhaled sharply. Daniel pressed one finger to his lips. Rusk poured gasoline across the records desk. Evidence removal. Daniel scanned the bay. Distances. Exits. Cover. The reflection in a darkened window. The slight outward angle of Rusk's right foot. The pistol held too tightly, its muzzle wavering with every breath. For 30 years, Daniel had trained himself to enter danger. For the last 3, he had trained himself to leave it. There were no children in the building. Confrontation was unnecessary. He guided Marlene and Gus through the rear parts room and out an emergency exit. Once they reached the snowy drainage ditch, Marlene called 911. Fire crews arrived before the blaze spread beyond the office. Rusk was gone. Sheriff's deputies found the gas can, but not the pistol. They found the damaged brake line. They took statements and sealed the maintenance bay. Captain Laura Bennett arrived shortly before dawn. She was a 20-year law enforcement veteran with tired eyes and a reputation for distrusting easy answers. She listened to Daniel, Marlene, and Gus separately. "You saw Rusk carrying the gasoline?" she asked Daniel. "Yes. And a firearm?" "Semi-automatic pistol. Black frame. Probably 9mm. "Probably?" "I didn't inspect it." She studied him. "You notice a lot for a bus driver." It was pointed in my direction. Before Daniel could say more, 2 patrol cars turned into the depot. The lead deputy stepped out holding his phone. "Captain, you need to see this." The video had been uploaded 14 minutes earlier. Emma sat against a blank wall in her father's home office. Her skin was pale. Her eyes were swollen, and her words came out flat, as if she had repeated them until they no longer belonged to her. Mercer grabbed my wrist on the bus," she said. "He told me to say my dad was planning something. He said he could make everyone believe him because he knew how to plant evidence. He put something on the brake line, and then he told me he was going to blame Sentinel." Daniel watched without moving. In the video, Emma looked just to the left of the camera before every important sentence. Someone was standing there. Bennett replayed it. Marlene stepped forward. "That girl is terrified." "Maybe," Bennett said. "But she made a direct allegation, and Mercer found the damage." "I didn't find it," Daniel said. "Gus did." The deputy looked down at his phone. "There's more. Superintendent Pike says Mercer had unrestricted depot access and threatened Mr. Vale claims his daughter was too frightened to speak before now." "This is garbage," Marlene said. Bennett's expression tightened. "I have a minor accusing him of assault and evidence tampering. I can't ignore that because her father is unpleasant." "You can notice the timing," Daniel said. "I noticed." "Then notice she keeps looking off camera." "I noticed that too." The deputies approached him. Behind them, the first children on the route were arriving with parents who had not yet seen the cancellation notice. Marcus Green stood beside his mother. Lily Chen held a red lunchbox and counted the fence posts under her breath. Captain Bennett lowered her voice. "Daniel Mercer, you are under arrest on suspicion of assaulting a minor, tampering with evidence, and criminal sabotage." Marlene stared at her. "You cannot be serious." Daniel held out his hands. "Daniel," Marlene said, "tell them." "Tell them what?" "Whatever it is you've spent 3 years not telling anybody." His gaze moved to the children. Marcus had stopped counting breaths. Lily had stopped counting fence posts. "No," Daniel said. A deputy fastened the handcuffs. Parents raised phones. Camera lights flashed as a local reporter who had been covering the depot fire hurried across the parking lot. Daniel could have ended some of the speculation with 6 words. Senior Chief, United States, Navy SEAL. He could have named commanders, operations, commendations. But much of his service record remained sealed, as did the names of men who had served beside him and civilians whose lives depended on old secrets staying buried. He had made promises before anyone in that parking lot knew his name. Public humiliation did not release him from those promises. He said nothing as the deputies led him past bus 18. Lily began crying. Mercer, Marcus called. "Did you hurt Emma?" Daniel stopped long enough to look at him. "No." One of the deputies guided him forward. The children watched their bus driver placed in the back of a patrol car. By 7 o'clock, the video was everywhere. By 8, cable news had found Daniel's sealed service record. The absence of information became evidence in the hands of people who needed a story before breakfast. Former military driver linked to school bus sabotage. Mystery veteran accused by child. Was the district warned? A former Sentinel consultant appeared on television and described Daniel as highly trained, evasive, and potentially dangerous, though the man had never met him. Grant Vail gave an interview from the steps of the sheriff's office. "My daughter showed tremendous courage," he said. "We now know this unstable individual manipulated a vulnerable child, sabotaged a vehicle, and attempted to frame the very company trying to protect our community." Inside an interview room, Captain Bennett placed Daniel's military background report on the table. Most of it was black ink. "What did you do in the Navy?" she asked. "Maintenance." That answer stopped being funny. It was never a joke. "Your personnel file is almost completely redacted." "Yes. Why?" "You know why records are sealed. I know several reasons. Some of them concern me. I was honorably retired. I confirmed that much. Then confirm I've never been charged with violence, never been disciplined by this district, and never touched Emma Vail except to hand her things she dropped." Bennett sat across from him. "If her accusation is false, why would she make it?" "Because someone found something she feared more than lying." "What?" Daniel thought of Noah climbing into the Range Rover while watching his sister through the glass. "I don't know yet." Bennett studied him for several seconds. "Vail says you planted the brake damage to discredit Sentinel. Vail had my suspension prepared before Emma spoke to me. Pike says it was drafted because of prior complaints. There were no prior complaints. We're checking. Check the metadata on Emma's video. Check who was in the room. Recover the recording she deleted from her phone. Vail's attorney says the phone contains privileged corporate material and won't release it without a warrant. That should tell you something. It tells me he has an attorney." A deputy opened the door and whispered to Bennett. Her expression changed. "What happened?" Daniel asked. "Rusk's vehicle was found abandoned. Where?" She did not answer. "Captain, at the Vail property." Daniel leaned forward. "Where are Emma and Noah? Vail says they're safe. Did one of your deputies see them?" Bennett stood. "I'll handle it. Handle it faster." She paused at the door. "You are in handcuffs because a 14-year-old girl accused you on video. Until I establish otherwise, you are not directing this investigation." Daniel sat back. "No," he said. "I'm just the only person in this building who believes she was asking for help." At the Vail estate, Emma sat on the floor of her bedroom with her knees pulled to her chest. Her father had taken her phone after forcing her to record the statement. It had taken him less than a minute to find the one threat she could not resist. "If you don't do this," Grant had told her, "Noah goes away." "What does that mean?" "It means I have friends who run residential programs for troubled boys. Places in Montana where children don't get phones, visitors, or vacations. He'll stay until he's 18. Noah isn't troubled. He will be after the evaluations I pay for." She had stared at him. Grant had lowered the camera. "You think anyone will believe you over me? Do this, and your brother stays home." So Emma had lied. She had accused the one adult who believed her because her father knew she would sacrifice herself for Noah. Now Grant paced downstairs, talking to attorneys and Sentinel executives. Rusk had arrived before dawn, furious about the failed fire and the police warrant. Their argument had shaken the walls. Emma had heard Rusk say, "If I go down, everybody gets dragged with me." Then the house had gone quiet. At 8:26, Captain Bennett arrived with 2 deputies and a warrant for Emma's phone. Grant met them in the foyer. "My daughter has endured enough." Bennett held up the warrant. "Then don't make this harder. She's resting. I need to speak with her alone." "No, that wasn't a request." Emma heard them from upstairs. She found an old mechanical pencil in her desk, but no paper. Her father had taken her notebooks after catching her recording him. Then she saw Noah's astronomy book on the floor outside his room. She tore a strip from the blank back page and wrote 7 words with a shaking hand. "I lied because Dad threatened Noah." She folded the paper twice and hid it in her palm. Grant stood at the bottom of the stairs when she came down. "Tell Captain Bennett you need rest," he said. Emma looked beyond him. Bennett was watching her, not Grant. "I need rest," Emma whispered. Grant smiled. Emma walked past the captain toward the kitchen. As she did, she let her hand brush Bennett's. The note passed between them. Bennett did not look down. She closed her fist and kept speaking. "We'll take the phone and be out of your way." Grant handed it over with theatrical reluctance. Bennett waited until she was inside her vehicle before unfolding the note. 30 seconds later, she ordered deputies to secure the estate and separate Grant from both children. But Noah was gone. So was Rusk. At the sheriff's office, Daniel heard quick footsteps in the hall. Bennett entered the interview room, unlocked his handcuffs, and placed Emma's note in front of him. The words were uneven, pressed so hard the pencil had nearly torn the paper. "I lied because Dad threatened Noah." "Emma recanted?" Daniel asked. "Not verbally. She slipped me this. Where is Noah?" "Missing." Vale claims Rusk took him. Claims? "We found messages between Vale and Rusk. They're arguing about money and exposure," Daniel stood. "The route. We canceled it." "Did Pike?" Bennett reached for her phone. Daniel was already moving toward the door. At 8:31, the district transportation app sent a delayed alert to families. Bus 18 resuming service with Sentinel temporary vehicle. The route should have been finished nearly 2 hours earlier, but Pike had sent parents a message blaming the delay on Daniel's arrest and the depot fire. Many had kept their children home. Others had waited, believing Sentinel was finally providing the safe transportation it had promised. The replacement bus was already on the road. Rusk was driving. Noah Vale sat in the first row. Emma's phone, recovered from Grant, began receiving location alerts from the family tracking account. Noah's watch was moving east with the bus. Daniel and Bennett ran into the parking lot. Marlene was waiting beside her district sedan. "They took 12 kids," she said. "Maybe more by now." "Who approved the route?" Bennett asked. "Pike. He overrode every cancellation in the system." Deputies were already bringing Superintendent Pike out of the administration building in handcuffs. Grant Vale arrived in another patrol car seconds later. He shouted through the window that Rusk had gone rogue. Daniel opened the sedan's driver door. Bennett grabbed his arm. "You were released 30 seconds ago, and they've had the bus for 12 minutes. You are not law enforcement. No." "I'm their driver." Marlene tossed him the keys. "Bring them home." The Sentinel bus had collected 19 students when Daniel spotted it heading east on Old Mill Road. Captain Bennett followed 2 minutes behind with deputies and state police converging from the interstate. Daniel called dispatch through the sedan's hands-free system. "Tell responding units no sirens. If Rusk sees a roadblock, he may panic." Mercer. "Mercer," the dispatcher said. "You are directed not to approach the vehicle." "I understand." "Do you?" "Yes," he accelerated. Old Mill Road climbed through forest toward Raven's Gap, where the pavement narrowed along a 100-foot slope. Rusk should have turned south toward the school. Instead, he continued east. Noah's watch was moving with the bus. Daniel caught up on a straight stretch and saw children through the rear windows. The bus slowed. For one hopeful second, he thought Rusk might surrender. Then 2 masked men rose from behind the last row of seats. One held a compact rifle. This was no longer a staged mechanical failure. Rusk had moved to a contingency plan. Daniel dropped back before they saw him. Captain Bennett came over the phone. "We have Vale and Pike in custody. Vale says Rusk kidnapped Noah and hijacked the route. Vale is lying." "Probably. Rusk sent him a message demanding $2 million in safe passage. He claims he'll release the children if Sentinel pays. He's making himself the villain Vale needs." "What does that mean?" "If Rusk takes the fall as a disgruntled employee, Vale survives. The company survives. They'll claim the sabotage was Rusk's unauthorized attempt to prove the need for their contract." "You think this hostage situation is still theater?" "I think the children are real leverage, but the story around them is manufactured." The bus turned toward Raven's Gap. Daniel knew the road. 3 miles ahead, a winter storm had damaged the guardrail. The county had installed temporary concrete barriers, leaving barely enough room for a bus. Beyond that was an abandoned limestone quarry with one access road. Rusk was heading somewhere he could control. Daniel's voice became calm. "Captain, block the western quarry exit. Keep aircraft back. Send one unmarked unit to the logging road north of mile marker 12. How do you know the terrain? I used to train in these mountains. With the Navy?" "Yes." "What kind of maintenance did you say you did?" Daniel did not answer. The Sentinel bus entered the quarry at 8:49. Rusk parked beside an old scale house with the passenger side facing a rock wall. It limited the children's exits to the front door and rear emergency hatch. Smart enough to be dangerous, not smart enough to understand children. They did not behave like adult hostages. They cried, moved unpredictably, asked questions, and looked to the nearest calm person for cues. That person was Emma. After slipping Bennett the note, Emma had seen the departing bus from an upstairs window. Noah was visible in the first row. Before deputies could stop her, she had run through the side yard and climbed aboard while Rusk was collecting another student. Now, through the bus windows, Daniel watched her move from seat to seat, calming younger children while the gunman shouted. She got Marcus to breathe with her. She held Lily's hand. She knelt beside Noah and made him look at her instead of the rifle. The girl who had been forced to condemn an innocent man was holding 19 terrified children together. Daniel parked behind a ridge and took off his canvas jacket. Underneath, he wore a gray work shirt. His wrists were red where the handcuffs had rubbed them raw. Captain Bennett arrived with a tactical team. "You're staying here," she said. Rusk knows standard police procedure. He'll expect negotiators to establish a perimeter and stall. That is exactly what we're going to do. He also knows you won't rush a bus full of children. That gives him control. And your alternative is what? Daniel pointed toward a drainage tunnel beneath the quarry road. That culvert leads behind the scale house. There's a service platform level with the bus roof. Someone can reach the roof hatch unseen. Bennett stared at him. "How do you know that?" "Satellite imagery and elevation maps. In the last 20 minutes? Yes. One of the tactical officers looked at Daniel more carefully. He was in his 40s, with a subdued naval special warfare pin attached to his plate carrier. His name tape read Harris. "Mercer," he said. "Daniel Mercer?" Daniel met his eyes. The officer went still. Captain Bennett noticed. "You know him?" Harris looked from Daniel to the bus. "Ma'am, Senior Chief Mercer helped design maritime hostage rescue doctrine after Operation Black Lantern." Bennett frowned. "What is Black Lantern?" "You won't find much about it. Cargo ship in the Gulf of Aden. 23 hostages, 14 armed pirates. What happened?" "Every hostage came home." Bennett looked at Daniel again. That morning, she had seen a secretive veteran accused of assault and sabotage. Now she saw the stillness in him, the way he had already mapped every approach, every window, every life inside the bus. Harris continued quietly. "He trained half the men who trained me." Daniel began rolling up his sleeves. On his left forearm was a faded tattoo, an eagle gripping an anchor and flintlock pistol beneath the word SEAL. The ink had been hidden for years. Now every officer near him saw it. Daniel looked toward the bus. "This is not Black Lantern," he said. "Those are children, not operators. Rusk has already shown he'll sacrifice them to protect himself. I know their names, their medical conditions, and what they do when they're scared." Bennett studied the culvert, then the bus. "You go with Harris." "No, that isn't negotiable." "Then Harris stays at the rear hatch. I enter alone." "Why?" "Because if those kids see a tactical team, they'll panic. If they see their bus driver, they'll listen." A phone rang at the command post. Rusk had called. Bennett answered on speaker. "I want a clear road to the interstate," Rusk said. 2 million transferred to the account I sent Vale. 1 helicopter overhead and I kill a kid." Daniel listened to the background. A turn signal clicked steadily. The bus engine was running. Rusk was preparing to move. Then Emma shouted, "Leave Noah alone!" A slap came through the phone. Daniel's face changed. Not anger. Something colder and more useful. Rusk returned to the line. "You have 10 minutes." He disconnected. Daniel entered the drainage tunnel with Harris behind him. Cold water reached their ankles. The concrete tube narrowed until they had to crouch. At the far end, Daniel could see the scale house and the roof of the bus beyond it. Harris whispered, "What's the plan once you're inside?" "Get the children below the window line. Separate Rusk from the controls. Stop the bus." "That's not a plan. That's a list of miracles." "No. Miracles require luck." They climbed the service platform. Daniel stepped onto the bus roof without making a sound. Through the emergency hatch, he heard Rusk arguing with one of the masked men. "We drive out in 6 minutes. Cops will spike the road. Then we use the kids as cover." Daniel examined the hatch. New bus, standard latch, no external lock. He signaled Harris toward the rear. Then the bus lurched forward. Rusk had moved early. Daniel flattened himself against the roof as the vehicle accelerated down the quarry road. Harris barely caught the rear ladder. The police perimeter erupted into motion. Rusk drove directly toward the temporary concrete barriers at Raven's Gap. Daniel opened the roof hatch and dropped inside. A masked gunman spun toward him. Daniel moved before the rifle cleared the seat back. He trapped the weapon against the luggage rail, drove one short strike into the man's wrist, and turned the rifle toward the ceiling. The gunman pulled the trigger. The shot blasted through the roof. Children screamed. Daniel twisted the rifle free, ejected the magazine, cleared the chamber, and sent the weapon sliding beneath the seats. 3 movements, less than 2 seconds. The second gunman charged from the rear. Daniel stepped aside, used the man's momentum, and folded him over a seat back. He pinned him there without striking again. "Emma," Daniel called. She stared at his exposed tattoo, at his posture, at the gunman unable to move beneath one of his hands. "Musher! Mercer! Get everyone on the floor. Heads down. Hold the seat frames." His familiar voice cut through the panic. Emma reacted first. "You heard him!" she shouted. "Everybody down!" The children obeyed. Emma pulled Noah between 2 seats and covered his head. Rusk looked into the overhead mirror. His face drained of color. "You?" Daniel released the second gunman only after Harris climbed through the rear hatch and restrained him. Rusk drew his pistol with one hand while steering with the other. Daniel was 15 feet away with children between them. He did not charge. He did not reach for the discarded rifle. Instead, he grabbed the red fire extinguisher from its bracket and discharged it down the aisle. A white cloud swallowed the driver's compartment. Rusk fired blindly. The bullet shattered a side window. Daniel moved low between the seats, reached the front, and struck Rusk's gun hand against the steering column. The pistol fell beneath the brake pedal. Rusk grabbed the wheel with both hands and jerked it hard left. The bus smashed through a wooden barricade and entered Raven's Gap. Concrete barriers waited ahead. Beyond them, the road dropped into open air. Daniel locked Rusk's right arm against the seat. "Take your foot off the accelerator," Rusk laughed wildly. "You want the bus? Take it!" He stomped harder. Daniel saw the children huddled on the floor. He saw Emma shielding Noah and Lily with her body. He could incapacitate Rusk, but a fight over the steering wheel at 40 miles per hour would kill everyone. So Daniel changed the problem. He released the parking brake, shifted the transmission into neutral, and used the bus's remaining momentum instead of fighting it. Then he swung the wheel toward the uphill rock face. The bus clipped the first concrete barrier. Metal screamed. Daniel feathered the service brake to avoid locking the rear wheels, corrected against the skid, then steered the bus onto a narrow gravel maintenance lane that ran upward beside the road. Rusk tried to seize the wheel. Daniel drove one elbow into the seat beside Rusk's head, not into the man himself. The impact made Rusk flinch away. That was enough. The maintenance lane ended at a gravel berm. Daniel aimed for it at an angle, allowing the right front wheel to climb first. The berm absorbed the bus's speed in stages. The vehicle tilted, shuddered, and stopped less than 30 yards from the broken guardrail. For 1 second, there was complete silence. Then Lily Chen's voice came from beneath a seat. "Did we crash?" Daniel kept one hand on Rusk and looked into the mirror. "No," he said. "We parked aggressively." A few children laughed. It was frightened, breathless laughter, but it meant they were alive. Harris secured Rusk. Daniel opened the front door. Tactical officers surrounded the bus, followed by paramedics and deputies. Children emerged crying into the arms of waiting rescuers. Emma stayed behind with Noah. She stared at the red marks around Daniel's wrists, then at the tattoo on his forearm. "My dad said you were dangerous," she whispered. Daniel lowered his sleeve. "Your father was wrong about a lot of things." Her face crumpled. "I'm sorry. I lied about you. They arrested you because of me." "No. They arrested me because your father threatened someone you love. I told everyone you hurt me. To protect your brother. I ruined your life." Daniel looked at Noah, who was gripping his sister's hand. "You kept him from being sent away. You got the truth to Captain Bennett. Then you climbed onto this bus because he needed you. I was scared. Brave isn't how you feel. It's what you do while you're feeling it." Emma began to cry. Daniel put one hand gently against the back of her head. "You do not carry your father's guilt," he said. "Do you understand me?" She nodded against his shoulder. Outside, cameras had already gathered beyond the police line. Daniel tried to leave through the rear of the ambulance staging area, but Captain Bennett stopped him. "Mercer," he turned. She held Emma's phone in an evidence bag. The deleted recording backed up to the cloud. Cybercrime recovered it. Is it enough? It has Vale discussing the staged brake failure with Rusk and Pike. It also records him telling Rusk to make you look unstable so no one would believe you if you noticed anything. Daniel glanced toward Emma and Noah. They were wrapped in blankets, speaking to a victim advocate. Bennett continued. "We recovered the original recording session, too. Vale threatened to send Noah to a residential facility unless Emma accused you. His attorney can't explain that away." "What about the kidnapping?" "Vale is trying to frame Rusk as a rogue employee. The messages and recordings end that argument. And the children?" "Emma and Noah's aunt is coming from Maryland. Child Protective Services obtained an emergency order. And Pike? Procurement fraud, conspiracy, reckless endangerment, obstruction. We'll add charges as the evidence develops." Daniel nodded. Bennett looked at the torn sleeve of his shirt and the faded seal tattoo beneath it. "You could have told me who you were. Would it have changed the evidence?" "No." "Then it shouldn't have changed how you treated me." Bennett accepted the rebuke. "You're right." Daniel looked toward the police line, where reporters who had called him dangerous that morning were now shouting questions about heroism. "Emma's note should have mattered more than my service record. It did. It mattered after you saw the truth. Next time, make it matter before the powerful person finishes talking." Bennett held his gaze. "I will." By noon, Daniel's military history was no longer hidden. Harris had not spoken to reporters, but someone had photographed the tattoo. Veterans recognized Daniel's name. Former teammates began making calls. A retired admiral confirmed that Senior Chief Mercer had served with distinction while refusing to discuss classified operations. The story moved from local news to national networks. Reporters parked outside Daniel's house. One anchor who had called him an unstable veteran at 8 o'clock called him the deadliest school bus driver in America by lunch. Daniel disliked that most of all. He released a statement through the sheriff's office. No child was saved by one person. Emma Vale protected younger students under threat and risked herself to protect her brother. Law enforcement contained the danger. District employees identified sabotage before it caused a fatal crash. Courage belongs to everyone who chose responsibility over fear. He refused every interview. Grant Vale did not have that option. Federal investigators joined the case after discovering Sentinel had used similar staged incidents to win 2 municipal contracts in other states. Vehicles had been sabotaged. Threat assessments had been falsified. Public officials had received consulting payments through shell companies. Vale had built his reputation by manufacturing the dangers he promised to stop. The video he forced Emma to record became evidence of witness, coercion, and obstruction. Superintendent Pike pleaded guilty and agreed to testify. Rusk faced federal kidnapping, firearms, and conspiracy charges, along with 19 counts of child endangerment. The two masked men turned out to be Sentinel employees who claimed they had been told they were participating in a controlled security demonstration. That defense collapsed when prosecutors recovered messages discussing live ammunition and escape routes. The district publicly cleared Daniel of every allegation. Captain Bennett held a press conference and stated plainly that the evidence against him had been fabricated. The regional station that broadcast Grantvale's accusation issued a correction at 11:47 on a Sunday night. Daniel did not watch it. Bus 18 remained in the maintenance bay for 6 weeks. The county canceled Sentinel's contract and voted to invest the recovered funds in its own transportation fleet. Marlene Ruiz became transportation director after Superintendent Pike resigned from his cell through an attorney. Gus Everett oversaw the purchase of 12 new buses. He kept the original bus 18. Evidence of historical significance, he claimed. Sentimental old fool, Marlene told him. Gus pointed at Daniel. He's the sentimental one. Daniel had not decided whether to return. The district offered him a safety director position with a larger salary and an office. He declined. A national security company offered him $500,000 to become a public spokesperson. He declined that too. Then, one evening in February, Emma came to his house with Noah and their aunt. Daniel was in the garage repairing a fishing reel. Emma stood in the doorway holding a folded piece of paper. Noah waited beside her with his hands in his coat pockets. "My therapist says I should say what I need instead of hoping people guess," Emma said. "Sounds like a smart therapist." "I need you to come back." Daniel set down the reel. "There are other drivers. They don't know Marcus hates sirens. They don't know Lily counts telephone poles. They don't wait 2 extra seconds for Jordan because his leg brace catches on the step. They can learn. But you already know." Daniel wiped grease from his fingers. Emma handed him the paper. It contained 19 signatures. At the bottom, in large, uneven letters, Lily had written, "Please park less aggressively next time." Beneath it, Noah had added, "Thank you for bringing my sister back, too." Daniel laughed. It surprised him how unfamiliar the sound felt. His eyes burned, and he looked away toward the shelves where Anna's gardening tools still sat in a cardboard box. For years, he had believed humility meant making himself invisible. He had confused hiding with peace. He had allowed people to misunderstand him because correcting them seemed too close to asking for praise. But silence, he finally understood, could protect secrets without requiring a man to abandon his place in the world. Claire had been right. Survival was not the only life he was allowed to have. "When does the route start?" he asked. Emma smiled. 6:45 Monday. At 6:12 on Monday morning, Daniel turned the key in a brand new blue bird bus. The engine started immediately. He frowned at the dashboard. "Something wrong?" Marlene asked from the depot door. "Too quiet. You'll adjust." The new bus had heated mirrors, modern safety restraints, and a camera system Gus had personally inspected. Someone had placed a small brass plaque beside the driver's seat, Bus 18. Honor is what you do when no one knows your name. Daniel ran one thumb across the words. Then he buttoned his sleeve over the old tattoo, not because he was ashamed, not because he was hiding. The children knew who he was now, and that knowledge had changed surprisingly little. Marcus still needed a seat near the front. Lily still counted telephone poles. Jordan's brace still caught on the second step. Emma and Noah boarded at the former Vale estate, now under court-ordered seizure. Their aunt stood at the curb and waved. Noah climbed into the first row. Emma took the seat behind Daniel. "You know, everyone at school thinks you're basically a superhero," she said. "They'll recover." "Somebody made t-shirts." "That's unfortunate. They used your driver's license photo." "That's criminal." She laughed and sat down. At Cedar Ridge Middle School, parents gathered near the drop-off lane. Some applauded when Bus 18 arrived. Several held phones in the air. Daniel ignored them. He opened the door, checked the mirrors, and counted every child as they stepped safely onto the sidewalk. 19 aboard. 19 delivered. Emma was last. Before leaving, she turned back. "My dad used to say respect was something powerful people made others give them." Daniel considered that. "Your father confused respect with fear. What's the difference? Fear disappears when power does. And respect?" Daniel looked at Noah and the other children waiting for Emma near the school entrance. "Respect is what remains." She nodded and joined them. Daniel closed the door. As bus 18 pulled away, the applause faded behind him. Morning sunlight crossed the windshield, bright enough to reveal every scratch in the glass and every mile of road ahead. For most of his life, Daniel Mercer had gone where his country sent him. He had entered dark places under names no civilian would ever hear, and he had carried good men home from battles no newspaper could describe. But the mission that finally brought him back to life did not come with a classified briefing or a flag on his shoulder. It came with a cracked vinyl seat, a frightened girl's handwritten note, and 19 names on a route sheet. Daniel had once believed heroes were defined by what they were willing to fight. He understood now that the better measure was what they chose to protect. He turned onto Old Mill Road, one hand steady on the wheel. And for the first time since leaving the Navy, Senior Chief Daniel Mercer was no longer disappearing. He was simply going home.